President Obama promised Americans strict oversight of the some odd $800 billion in federal stimulus money, saying Vice President Joe Biden would make sure there was no funny business because nobody messes with Joe. Not so much, as it turns out. The Government Accountability Office says that states are now using portions of this stimulus money, large portions of it, to fill in their budget gaps and basically to pay off Medicaid debts instead of creating jobs. Is that really what we had in mind? Steve Ellis is with the group of Taxpayers for Common Sense. He's my guest now. Hi, Steve.
Hi. Nice to be here.
All right. So the Government Accountability Office, they're all over the place. They're making sure that you can't get bombs into the federal buildings, which, by the way, it turns out you can. And they're investigating how the stimulus bill is actually being spent. Now, a big portion of this money was $787 billion. A big portion of it, about $50 billion, went to the states to try to help them create jobs, save jobs, that kind of thing. What is the GAO saying about what they're doing with the money?
Well, they estimated that they'll get about $50 billion by the end of the fiscal year, September 30th, and about $29 billion of that has already gone out. And a lot of this money was to backfill some of the Medicaid needs and Medicare needs so that it would free up other cash to do more stimulating things. But it seems like in a lot of cases, the states are really not doing new infrastructure or larger projects that are going to generate the jobs that was really promised under the stimulus.
I don't understand, because the GAO has concluded that almost all of the outlays have been used to bolster Medicaid, which is a health care program for the poor. If you're elderly and you don't have health care, you can use Medicare. And if you're younger and you don't make a certain amount of money, you can get Medicaid. They're saying that almost all of the stimulus money, the majority of it, has gone to help with Medicaid. How is that creating jobs? When President Obama backed this stimulus, he said that we were going to use it for school buildings, in particular public buildings that need to be retrofitted to make more energy efficient spaces, and he talked about construction jobs and so on. Where was the talk about helping Medicaid pay its bills?
Well, there was part of the discussion of having aid to states because they recognize this is a zero-sum game. So more money that's paid to backfill Medicaid is money that isn't available for other activities. So some of it is what are they doing with this extra cash? If we're helping them out with Medicaid, which you're right, about 90% of the funds provided directly to the states went to that, then what are they doing with these other funds, and are they directing it towards economically distressed areas? Are they trying to build new infrastructure and taking some of the things off of the nation's really large to-do list on infrastructure? Well, and what the GAO is finding is not.
Yeah, the GAO is saying no. As you point out, they say the stimulus law that was passed required the states that got the money, if they were going to give it to transportation projects, which had gotten so much discussion, they had to start with those projects that were in economically distressed areas, right? So you go help the folks who are hurting the most first. And the GAO is now reporting that's not being done. Is there any sort of accountability for this, Steve? I mean, what happens now?
Well, no, it's a good question. And actually, the GAO found that some of the states were sort of redefining what an economically distressed area is that was in contravention to what was under the law. And so, I mean, part of the problem with this is that we're really end up doing a post-mortem on figuring out where the money is being spent. And hopefully we can use that as leverage to make sure that the additional dollars, this is a 2-year bill, are being spent more wisely and appropriately. And that's one of the good things about the GAO doing this work.
Forget about the balance of the existing stimulus. They're already talking about stimulus 2 on Capitol Hill. I mean, you're still worried about where the balance of stimulus 1 is going to go? They're gearing up to pass stimulus 2, according to some lawmakers on Capitol Hill, including Steny Hoyer.
No, you're absolutely right. There is some saber rattling for that, but I think the public is sort of, a lot of people around the country are looking around and saying, where's it going on? I don't see a project in my backyard. Where's the stimulus? Where are the jobs? And so I think that they need to make sure that they get this right before we start talking about stimulus 2, the sequel.
Well, they're saying the reason that the money is going to perhaps the wrong places right now instead of the right places, as was required by the bill, is that there was pressure to spend the money and spend it fast. Maybe too much pressure, because they started funneling out the money to projects that would be quick, that they could start on right away, like repaving roads, even if they weren't the most needy projects. Now, is that the fault of those many Republicans who said, if you're going to put this money out there, you better put it out there fast?
Well, it's more, I mean, we have suffered at the altar on Shovel Ready, that essentially it really shows some of the fissures and the challenges of trying to use infrastructure spending as a stimulus, and the fact that it takes a long time for the money to move through the system and to deal with some of these big projects. And so although there was a lot of talk about how we had crumbling infrastructure in this country and that, you know, the stimulus would help us take some things off our to-do list, what we really found is that we've done a lot of stuff that's sort of nice to have, okay to have type of projects, and still the big, hairy, challenging ones are going to be out there even when we're done spending the stimulus and we're in a budgetary hole and not able to meet those challenges.
That is big, hairy, and ugly. Steve Ellis, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
There's a story going on.
You weren't talking about me.
That was good. Chester County, PA, outside of Philadelphia. There's a story going on right down there about these curbs that are mandated by the federal government. That now the stimulus dollars are being used to build these curbs and rebuild them because they were incorrectly installed. But there's no sidewalks for them.
So it's just a random curb?
No, on the intersection you see the sidewalk curbs in each corner, northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, and there are no sidewalks. Your money. We'll try and get to that tomorrow.